Fundamentally, listen. The founders, the developers, the mythology, the symbols, everything in Christianity in its essence and root is fundamentally African, and it is consistent with every other true African system. Which is why when the African Catholic slaves in Central America and South America decided to take Catholicism and use it, they just simply dressed up Africa in Catholicism and had no contradiction in the process. So it is fundamentally capable of being ours again in that sense. But the thing that neutralized, completely castrated Christianity was they put that white man's face on it. They put that white woman's face on it. They took that table of 12 of Leonardo da Vinci's paintings and put their faces on it and had you believing that this is a white religion. Now that was devastating. It rendered Christianity unusable. In the same way that Islam has become unusable by people who've put an Arab face on it. Listen, let me say it again. There are now large numbers of Muslims in this country who don't understand that Islam has its power in its ability to adjust to your cultural usage of it and can use it as a liberating instrument. But once people began to think it was like about salam alaikum and reading the Quran in Arabic and riding camels and chewing sticks and wearing long things and getting 6 wives who you couldn't feed. Once they decided that's what Islam was, Islam lost its potency. It lost its power, and the respectability of African Muslims standing up in America began to die before their very eyes. The Ashanti people in West Africa, Muslims, but they fought to the very end. To this day, no one has conquered the Ashantians because the Ashanti people maintained their culture in the context of Islam. Sheikh Anta Diop, what was he? A Muslim. And he, within the confines of being a very devout Muslim who understood that Islam was not the color of an Arab, not the color of a white man, not the color of a European. It was an instrument to be used by human beings to transcend oppression and to ascend into greater self-affirmation. Now that was off the point, but I was making this point. Because of this persistent antagonism about people of color and about Islam, the European white supremacy and Christian supremacy became the instruments of oppression and the agenda for establishing the paradigm here in North America. So all of that was very essential. So this materialism, this might thing, became the way that they began to introduce a conception that the world is our world as run by us. One other piece of this, there's more, but I just want to mention one other aspect of this form of thought. The invaders from Europe, the Columbian invaders, also brought in a concept of individualism. A concept that actually, hey, how you doing? All the way from Mississippi. A kind of concept that completely severed the connection that people have with each other. That they somehow begin to see people as individuals rather than as a part of a shared community of consciousness. It was a part of the materialism, it was a part of all the other things that each person then became an individual rather than a component in a bigger mind, in a bigger sense. Now this was devastating because that gave people the right then to deal with problems and to deal with their reality on an individual basis. You could treat children the way you wanted to because they were your children as opposed to the community's children. You could treat the elders any way you wanted to because they were your elders or they were responsible for themselves and not belonging to the community as a whole. The individualism then gave people the right to look out for themselves at the expense of anything and everybody else. This is the Columbian paradigm that came in. So now, those who've adopted that paradigm operate as if their responsibility is only ultimately to themselves. Now, what I want you to understand is that this paradigm, this way of thinking, this mindset is the problem that the slaves continue to have. Now, understand, it is a superimposed mindset. It is not the indigenous mindset. It is the mindset that has come from a group of captors, a group of invaders, a group of people whose entire history has been characterized by conquest, destruction, and a lack of reliable spiritual values. Now, that's not my calling them names. That is historically demonstrable. So it is problematic when the slaves subjected to that mind for 400 years begin to believe that in order to survive, they had to survive with those minds. I was watching a program last night on one of the CPTV, and they were talking, Sister Soldier was on there dealing with these other Negroes. These people are consistently saying that, look, we have got to work with white people if we're going to make it work. No, we have to consistently defend ourselves against white people if we're going to make it work. Consistently. Yeah. You know, I mean, folks get really tripped way out when they hear about the conspiracies of somebody, the Masons doing this, interacting with the other people in the pale horse coming out, and how they get together and they put together to put Washington and Bush in office, and they kill Kennedy, and they do. That shouldn't surprise you. Surprised? Y'all act like y'all shocked. Wow. Didn't you hear, well, you know, perhaps they even put together the AIDS drug, and they injecting people with AIDS, and they probably doing it to kill black folks. So that surprises you? So what else is new? You know, what have they done for you lately anyway? You understand? But you see, I mean, y'all get shot way out in space and start collecting volumes of documentation and wasting hours in the library trying to prove what Elijah Muhammad said concisely and succinctly. They are the what? He said it, I didn't. Now listen. I want you to hear that. I want you to hear that as a paradigm shift. You understand? What was intended by that was not to have you running around looking for their tail, you know. Where your pitchfork, devil, you know. To call names, you know. It was intended to be able to put into clear relief what the true issue is. It was intended to let African Americans know once and for all, do not expect them to save you. You understand that? That was the simple point. It was also saying, don't be surprised at anything they may do to try to destroy you. That's all it was. Simple. It was saying, don't be tripped. Don't be surprised. They may do anything, anytime, anyway. And if you know that, then you must operate accordingly. You must operate with a clear understanding that you must do whatever you must do to properly defend and protect yourself, assuming that they can come at you from above, from below, from inside, from outside. They can dress up in black, they can dress up in white, they can come in the church, they can come in a laboratory, they can come in a book, they can come in the cartoons, they can come as a comedian, they can come as a singer, they can come as a rap artist, they can come in a dashiki, they can come in kente cloth, they can come speaking African, they can come with doing anything. They can come anyway. But once you know what the devil is, you ain't surprised. You ain't surprised. Okay, now, the other piece is that in that paradigm, as long, you see, what you have to understand is how much time we waste operating under the paradigm that you can appeal to conscience. You know what I mean? Look, we have spent 100 years saying,